Today, I'm delighted to welcome Sunil Piyarlall from Openserve, who is the chair of the Collaboration and Liaisons Committee for the WBBA, a founder member and a long-term member of the WBBA. And I'm just going to take an opportunity to have a conversation with Sunil to get his thoughts on the industry, on the WBBA, and how the global digital economy is evolving. So Sunil, welcome.
Hi, Martin. Thank you for having me as part of this exciting leadership discussion. I'm really looking forward to it.
Brilliant. So let me kick off just with a general comment about, you chair our Collaboration and Liaison Committee of the board. You sit on the board of the WBBA. Can you give me some thoughts on how you view the collaboration and liaison activities of the WBBA and the importance of them?
Yeah, look, I think some of the greatest opportunities stem from participating in these working groups, Martin, and chairing the Collaboration Liaisons Committee gives me an opportunity to be part of the broader ecosystem, to look at the 7 working groups that we have and see how, as Openserve, we can add value to these working groups.
And do you think these working groups also reverse that and add value back to Openserve and the things you're trying to do in your day job?
Absolutely. Let me use the generational working group as an example, where the WBBA starts looking at what's happening in the next 5 to 10 years. And as Openserve, we currently have GPON, XGS PON, and parts of our network 50 gig PON enabled. And we're quite closely following what the WBBA is doing in terms of bringing standards bodies together for 100 gig PON. So that adds a lot of value in terms of where Openserve sets its strategy, technology and network strategy for the next 5 to 10 years. So we get a lot of benefit from, and then that is just one working group. There's other working groups that we actively participate in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you're a very good example, but also a typical example of how the big operators, the big member companies are getting value from the work that WBBA. It's all very relevant to your day-to-day problems and challenges, it's not ivory tower. One of the other topics that you and I have talked about a number of times is the whole challenge of bringing broadband to everyone, closing the digital divide, and maybe closing the emerging AI divide that's happening across the world. But Africa is a prime example of where that digital divide and AI divide needs to be closed.
Yeah, I think, Martin, if we look at some of the challenges specifically in Africa, one of the main challenges is affordability. And unfortunately, those who need access to broadband and those who need to be part of the digital transformation to benefit from some of the economies of scale that are associated with it are unfortunately those who cannot afford the cost of broadband. And one of the other big challenges is that as you get out of the metropolitans, it gets less densely populated. So trying to deploy fiber in these areas becomes more expensive. And hence you'll find that in not just in Africa, but in other parts of the world, as you get out of the metropolitans, there's this huge digital divide. And I think, if you start looking at the access, the importance of access to broadband, we're living in an era where e-learning, e-health, and general e-commerce is a basic need. In the very near future, we'll not be able to conduct any transaction without access to broadband. And I think this is a case where if we don't, we as some of the large telcos, and when I say we as the World Broadband Association, doesn't start addressing this digital divide, we're going to see the poor get poorer and probably the rich thrive.
I think you and I have spoken about this a number of times, because over the last 20 years, the idea of closing the digital divide by giving people basic connectivity, you do close the digital divide and they can do some transactions online, some search and so on. But now particularly in 2025 and racing forward in 2026 and beyond, the demands of AI, the opportunities of AI, that if you don't give people good quality broadband, they're not able to access the enhanced intelligence that they get from being able to use AI. And it just leaves them further and further behind. As you say, the rich getting richer and the poor stagnating.
Yep. Yeah. And like you said, I've spoken about this on various platforms, that online economy, online purchasing is something that the poor can actually take advantage of, because in the larger metropolitans, you have access to choices. As you move out of the metropolitans, you don't have the, a choice of where you can purchase from, what you can purchase. So if they have this option, just by being connected and being able to transact digitally, will improve their lives, will improve their livelihoods, and then give them access to things that they don't have access to now.
And buy and sell, absolutely. So when we look out into 2026, I mean, things have moved really fast in 2025. I would always, I try and keep my finger on the pulse of the industry. But my goodness, 2025 has been so fast. But 2026 is just charging towards us. So what do you think is going to, or what are you looking out for in 2026 in the overall digital economy and how it's evolving and challenges and opportunities?
Yeah, I think 2026 and probably our path towards 2030. We always speak of 2030 as though it's the next decade, but it's literally 4 years away. And if we start looking at what's happening now, I think we'll start seeing platform business prosper. I think we'll start seeing telcos who become part of ecosystems and facilitate the orchestration of these ecosystems will start thriving. I think connectivity is going to be a commodity. So just relying on connectivity, especially for large telcos, would not be a primary source of business. But be becoming part of the larger ecosystems, starting to see how you connect the tens of millions of people that sit outside the metropolitans would be an area where you start seeing better revenue streams coming in. And a huge focus, not just from government, not just from regulatory bodies, but from communities as well, to try and get the unconnected connected.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's going to be the key challenge that we face probably for the next few years, and we're trying to get the unconnected connected. We're going to connect them not with just basic connectivity, but as good connectivity as we possibly can, and then give them access to reliable, valuable services, government services, business services, educational, healthcare, and so on. Absolutely.
And maybe just to,
please go ahead.
So sorry, maybe just to add to that, I mean, you've signed, it was a milestone when you signed a liaison with the Southern African Telecommunications Association in Africa. And I think that is a huge step forward with the WBBA and SATA working together to see how we can get Africa connected. So a very positive move there in terms of moving, and I'm hoping we see more of that happen in 2026. We've signed the liaison in 2025. We started working closely together in 2025. And let's see if we start bearing some fruit from that in 2026.
Yeah, right at the very start of this, you mentioned kind of a 2030 vision. And as you know, we're looking at building that 2030 vision for WBBA. But for me, Africa sits right at the center of that 2030 vision, because there's such a hunger and opportunity and so many places within Africa that we can actually achieve benefit for the general good, and so that's sitting very central in that whole 2030 vision.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you've been with the WBBA since the start, and could you say a few words just about your experience of the culture, how it works, why it works for Openserve?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think, I was part of the founding members where we sat before forming the WBBA, and we set out certain visions, Martin, as a small group of individuals. And what's really exciting for me is to see a lot of this come together, seeing the WBBA bring standards bodies together, to bring OEMs together, bring customers together, bring telcos together, and start signing these liaisons and collaborations with different bodies. I think that is where we get the benefit. If we as an operator, as Openserve, try and negotiate a standard alone, it makes it difficult. When you have a body like the WBBA taking the lead and bringing everyone together and influencing standards, influencing decisions made by standards bodies, that's where we benefit. And also, I spoke earlier on about the generational working group and how well that is going. And then there's other working groups. Look at the WBBA launching the investment guidebook for Africa. It's not something that just Openserve benefits, but telcos across Africa, the community across Africa benefits from it. So we're seeing those kind of benefits coming in, being part of the members. And another huge program that Openserve is working very closely with the WBBA is the rehoming of used equipment. And the rehoming of used equipment may seem like equipment that cannot be used, but it is technologies that can serve communities for at least the next 5 to 10 years. Some of the larger telcos are taking out GPON equipment that can give you up to 1 gigabit per second. We have countries that don't have 1 megabit per second. So gigabit connectivity for them would be huge, and getting them into the fiber world by donating some of this equipment will make a huge impact on the African continent. And I think that's a program I'm really looking forward to see kicking off in 2026.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, I mean, Openserve was the driving force behind our really successful event in November in Cape Town. And the work that you personally did in order to bring all of the leading speakers, the ministers and CEOs and so on, that we got into the room to talk about the broadband challenges and opportunities in Africa, the impact of AI and so on, was really exciting. And that was another major achievement, I think, driven by Openserve this year.
Yep. So although it is driven by Openserve, a really good initiative by the WBBA, Martin, what we managed to do was to get the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies. We managed to get ministers from other countries. We managed to get high-profile delegations from other countries within Africa. And importantly, we managed to get various telcos across Africa and telcos within South Africa to be part of that event. And we've seen commitment from regulators, from government bodies, from telcos to try and bridge this digital divide that we all speak of. So that was a very successful event in my eyes. But I've also attended other events in Barcelona and in Bangkok, BDCs that also try and promulgate the same message. Let's connect the unconnected. And I think when we start seeing that happen next year and we start bearing the fruits of that, that would be great to witness.
Brilliant. And we're facing into Christmas and the New Year and so on. How are you going to spend your Christmas? How are you going to relax from all this hard work we've been doing for the last year?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think it's a good break when most of the world takes a break. But unfortunately, as telcos, you don't always have an opportunity to take a break totally. So I'm fortunate I will be on leave, and I'll be doing what I really enjoy doing. I'm an avid angler, so I'm hoping to spend some time fishing. But I think we have a skeleton crew that would look after the network.
Okay.
Being a key network provider in South Africa, while we are on leave, the rest of the country needs to be connected. So we will have a workforce that's working during the period and taking turns to take leave. But we're looking forward to a bit of a break. I think a bit of a break from all the work that we do as the World Broadband Association, and looking forward to kicking off fresh next year.
Excellent. Well, many thanks, Sunil, and thanks for all of your support during 2025. And here's to an even better 2026. Thank you.
Absolutely, Martin. All the best to you and your family, and to the World Broadband Association as well. Everything of the best for 2026.
Thank you.